Now we will continue the poem Snake from where we left. The last line which we did was that he should seek my hospitality from out the dark door of the secret earth. Now we will start from he drank enough and lifted his head dreamily as one who has drunken, and flickered his tongue like a fogged night, so black, seeming to lick his lips, and looked around like a god, unseeing into the air. Now the poet says he drank enough. Again, he has been used for the snake. So the poet says when he observed the snake at his water throw, he was fascinated, though the initial impulse was to hit and kill him. But he wanted to admire his movements. So he just waited and saw him drinking the water. Now the poet says he drank enough. That means he drank plenty of water. Further he adds and lifted his head, and then he lifted his head. That means hood. So the snake lifted his hood dreamily. Now dreamily in the sense because it was hot summer afternoon and the snake was feeling bit tired, bit drowsy due to excessive heat. Furthermore, the snake was not afraid as the snake was not aware of any presence around him. So he was a bit casual and he lifted his hood, he lifted his head in a dreamily state as one who has drunken. Now the poet further adds his condition was just like a human individual who has consumed lot of alcohol. Once a human individual consumes lot of alcohol, he or she is not in control of his or her senses. Similarly, for the poet, the snake seemed to be drunken. Why? Because the snake was extremely tired, he was extremely thirsty, he quenched his thirst, and since he was not aware of any human presence or any creature around him, he thought he was all alone over there, so he lifted the head very casually in a dreamy-like state. Now the poet further adds that the snake flickered his tongue. Flickered means to move. Suppose this is the tongue and it is split into two. The snake's tongue is split into two. So he just flickered, he just shook, he just waved his tongue like a fogged night. Now fogged means black as night. Poet has written night, fogged night. That means the tongue of the snake was extremely black, and that tongue can be compared with that of the night. Night is dark, similarly the tongue of the snake was also dark. So the poet adds he flickered his tongue like a fog night on the air, so black. So he flickered his tongue in the air and the tongue was very black. It was extremely black, seeming to lick his lips. And further the poet adds seeming to lick his lips, seeming to lick. That means the night which is very dark, so it appeared as if there is no comparison between the night and his tongue. That's why it might appear as if the night will lick his lips. So it's just a comparison. The poet is just drawing a comparison between the night and the poet's tongue. And further he adds, he looked around him like a god. That means the snake who was looking so graceful, who was looking so wonderful, who was looking so confident, the poet was absolutely fascinated. So the poet started to feel as if the snake was just like a god, unseeing into the air. Unseeing means supremacy over here. For the poet, the snake appeared to be extremely supreme at that moment. Now the poet further adds, and slowly turned his head and slowly, very slowly, as if thrice a dream, proceeded to draw his slow length, curving around and climb again the broken bank of my wall face. Now the poet says, and slowly turned his head. That means the snake very slowly turned his head, and slowly, very slowly, as if thrice a dream. So the movements of the snake, the movements of the head of the snake was that slow, it appeared to the poet as if he was in a dream, in a state of a dream, as if he was drunken. He was not in his proper senses. So once he was satiated, once he quenched his thirst, he proceeded to draw his slow length, curving around. So in just a serpentine moment, he started to move forward. So he proceeded. Proceeded means started to move forward. So he started to move forward, slow length. That means he started to move very slowly, curving around. These are the curves. So we all know the snake moves in a curve. And climb again the broken bank of my wall face. Now the poet says the snake went to his hiding place, and that hiding place was somewhere in the poet's wall face. Now the snake drank all the water he wanted to, and once satisfied, he moved his tongue, which was bifurcated into two, and he moved his tongue in the air. The tongue of the snake was black, and that can be compared with the night, which is also black. The snake appeared to enjoy the water as it seemed to lick his lips. The snake had an air of supremacy as he turned around without looking. His movements were extremely slow, and he moved in a curving motion as if he was in a state of a dream. Then the snake started to climb up the wall again. So once the snake quenched his thirst in a supreme manner without caring for anyone around him, the snake very slowly started to draw back to his hiding place, which was somewhere near the water throw.